Hi, everyone, and welcome to our CSP webinar. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Stephen Phelps, and I am the marketing director here at Acumen Information Systems. Today, we brought in our very own Isabel to go over our fan favorite topic, Sage Intacct tips and tricks. For this webinar, we have everyone on listen only mode. So if you have any questions, then please write them in the chat option and we'll answer near the end of the presentation. Or we will have one of our account managers follow up if we run out of time. We have a lot to cover in 30 minutes, so now I will pass it on to Isabel.
Thank you, Stephen. So I want to start by thanking everyone for joining. Our goal for this session is to provide you with some tips that can help improve the user experience and save time during data entry in Intacct, as well as show you some tricks that you may have not been aware could be done in the system. So with that being said, these will be the topics that we're going to be covering: user preference settings, enhanced list view, Intacct collaborate, Intacct checklist, and then at the very end, we'll do the tricks. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me find my Intacct here. And all right, so let's start with user preferences. So this can be done by each user or on behalf of a user. So to start with the changes, you would go over to the username at the top right-hand corner of the Intacct login screen and click on My Preference. If you are going to be changing it on behalf of another user, you do need to make sure that you have permissions to the company menu, admin, and then under the user's view, you would click on Preference to access the screen we're going to be covering next. Okay, so the first section of our user preference area is general information. Next, we have the security preferences. Now, in here, you could play around with the inactivity limits that before Intacct signs you out. It will be limited to what your company admin said as a policy, so just keep that in mind. But the area where we're going to be focusing today is My Display. So for example, whenever you log into Intacct, the very first screen that you see, it's by default, the Intacct homepage. Now you might be the controller, you might be the AP manager, and you might want to just get in and log in and be directed to your application. So if you're the controller, perhaps you want to look at the dashboards. And so by updating your start page, that's exactly what you'll be able to do. If you are picking a dashboard, then you could say which of the available dashboards, either out of the box or custom, you can go ahead and assign. The other section that you want to also perhaps play with, it's under the personalized menu. You can set the order of the applications for your menu here. Okay. Now you do have to make sure that the use my own order dial is selected so that then you can drag and drop the applications in the order that you want to see them. Again, you might be the person that's in charge of reconciling cash every month. So perhaps you have your cash management reports, you might run AP reports and AR reports. So you want those to be your top three. I do want to mention that you can also make those changes on the actual application menu as well. So you can drag and drop the application names in the order that you want. Okay. Next section that we'll jump to is the page defaults. So this is going to be related more towards your list views and your drop downs. So by default, when we're looking at a list view, and that could be the GL account view, the vendor view, customer view, we get a limit of 20 records. And so what we end up with, it's multiple pages that we have to go through in order to find our records, okay? Now, the setting here allows us to set a max of 999 rows per page. And so we normally tell clients, let's take advantage of that setting so that you don't have to sit through 100 pages looking for records. And of course, at the end of the day, you could still use the filtering on the column headers to further reduce the amount of results. Okay. Under items per page, so whenever we're working, and let's think about the department dimension for this example. Sometimes when we're typing in a department, we can't find it, but on the top right-hand corner of that dropdown, we can click on that view option. It allows us to expand our list. So when we get that pop-up, we can set the default to be 40 items per page, or you can actually, I believe my apologies, the default is 15, but we can set it all the way down to 40. Okay. Next, we'll talk about drop-down lists. So whenever, again, and I'm going to refer back to the department dimension, if I'm clicking in the department dimension field, I can see up to 1,000 items in that drop-down. Now, that is Intacct's default. If you wanted to reduce that so to make it that drop-down shorter, you can go ahead and set it to 250. I like to keep mine at 1,000 just because the more the merrier and the easier to work with. On the transaction screens now, we're moving on to transaction screens. The default setting is whenever we're working on an AP bill, journal entry, the detail section includes only 2 rows by default. However, you could change that as well. And the maximum rows per line, it's going to be 20. Okay, so we could set that up. Oops, scroll down. And of course, when we're talking about posted transactions, so let's say we posted a journal entry and we are just viewing the transaction, we can also control how many rows we see in that view mode. So again, the default by Intact is 10, or you could set it to max, which essentially means it'll should display as many as it can fit on your screen. Okay. So those are the user setting, preference and setting when it comes to updating your pages and your list views. Now, additional behavior or settings that you can have in Intact within this section is you can check this box to have Intact automatically insert decimal points whenever you're working in a numeric field. You can also have all of the available fields in your transaction display in the same line. And if you are a keyboard user and you rather use the Enter key to move around instead of having to use the Tab key, you can also check this box. All right. Let's go over to our next topic. So I'm going to go ahead and make the changes here and just move on to our next topic, which is going to be enhanced lists. So enhanced lists use a combination of display options and filtering criteria so that you can easily customize your views in the system. And of course, it makes it easier to get all of the information that you're looking for. So to find one, I'm going to go ahead and go over to accounts payable and bills. Now, keep in mind that enhanced list is available for the general ledger, accounts payable, and accounts receivable. Okay. The first step to get that enhanced view is to enable it. So we can click on the turn on enhanced lists option. And so Intact will reconfigure its view. And now that we have it enabled, notice that in here we have the option to set filters at every column. We can click on the header to reset our sorting options. If you're wanting to filter on multiple criteria, you can actually click on the filter icon on the top right-hand side corner of the view. And in here, you will see the list of available fields that you can filter for. as well as your operators. Okay. If you wanted to add or remove columns, you would click on the gear on the right-hand side of the screen as well, and click on the Configure Columns section. Now, on the All tab, you're going to find all of your available fields. And on the Selected tab, you're going to see the fields that are already included. So let's say I want to remove the base currency and transaction currency, and I click on apply, those columns immediately fall off from my list. So you can also come back and say that you wanted to see the payment priority on your view, and you can click that in here. Okay. As far as ordering the columns, these can be easily dragged and dropped in the order that you are wanting to see them. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and filter for my payment priority to high. And that automatically pre-filters my list. And so one of the things I did want to cover, it's under the three little dots, the ellipses, you do get the options to view, edit, of course, delete the AP bill or transaction if that's what your configuration is set up for. You can reverse and then ultimately also pay the bill from here. Okay. We're gonna clear our filter. And another neat functionality here is the option to split the screen. So if I click on this split screen icon, now what I'm going to see is on the left-hand side, I have my list of bills. And on the right-hand side, I have my actual bill entry screen. And so I can go through my list and click on our next invoice. I can view all of the information that I need to. If this screen here on the left-hand side, the bills list is getting on the way, we can actually hide it while we review our transaction. And then once we're done, we'll click on the expand arrow one more time to bring it back up. Okay. And then if I want to close my expense, my apologies, my bill screen, I can either click done or just reset my view by clicking the list icon. Okay. Another thing is if, for example, you're wanting to reset all of the changes back, you can actually click on revert changes and the list goes back to its original state. Notice that here I have my currency columns, my priority payment column is now gone. I hope you guys take advantage of these lists. Now, if at any point you decide that you play with this set of new enhanced lists enough and you're not really finding what you're looking for, and you just want to go back to the old setting, you can at any time, you can easily turn it off. And so it just goes back to your classic view. All right. Okay. So we've covered user preferences, we've covered enhanced lists. Now let's move on to our Intacct Collaborate. So Intacct Collaborate helps with speeding up internal communications. What this means is that if you guys are using Intacct Collaborate, the users are not having to switch between Intacct to send an email or a Teams message or call someone to gather information related to a transaction, a project, or a document that you're researching, because Intacct now has Collaborate and we can put all of those questions in the system. So first of all, if you haven't enabled Intacct Collaborate, you can do so by going over to Company, Admin, and under Subscriptions, you will find the Intacct Collaborate application and enable click the enable button here. Now, under the configuration, I do want to show you that you can actually exclude users from the application. It's available to all users by default, but if there are any cases where you need to exclude someone, you can do so by setting them as excluded users here. Right? Once the application has been enabled, the way to access it is by clicking on this comment bubble in the top right-hand corner of your screen. And so notice that I already have comments that I can see. So it's a mini summary in this drop down. But if I wanted to see more of what's being talked about or conversations that I'm following, I would actually click on View All in the Collaboration Center. And this is what the feed looks like. So our feed is split in 3 different ways. You could have conversations that you are following. You can have conversations in the To Me area that are directed to you. People can actually add and then enter your username for that. And then you could see all comments for all of the company and just stay in the loop. Okay. Under people, and this is, I'm the only user for this demo company, so that's why you only see me. But in your instances, you should see the full list of users that you can actually follow. And so you will be able to click on the plus sign here next to their name so that you can essentially befriend them in Intacct. Another benefit of Collaborate is you can also create groups. So let's say we have the management team and we wanted to create a group where we are able to keep the comments posted within that group private. We can do so. You can then set the group as private. Members that want to join will need approval, so it won't be open to everyone. And then you can also see only members can see the comments posted to that group. Last but not least, we have the files section. So one of the things that you can do with Collaborate is attach files to your comments or supporting evidence for your transaction. And so you can view that in the system. So right now I loaded this logo into the Collaborate application. if somebody shares a file with me, I would see it filtered in this area, or I could view all files uploaded by all of the users if it helps in my research. Okay. As far as posting or making a posting, I'm just going to jump back to feed. I can post something directly from the Collaborate Center. But if it's a transaction specific posting, perhaps you want to do it from the transaction screen, and we'll do that next. So in here, you'll see that I can post transactions to my comments to my followers or a group. Okay. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and say Happy Memorial Day. We're closed. Okay. And so now that is going to be posted and available for everyone to see under the all company, or the people that follow me can go ahead and post it. Sorry, view it. The second place where you can actually post, and now I'm going to jump over to accounts payable, bills, and just pick one of these bills here. If you scroll all the way down on a transaction screen, you can see in here you can make a post or a comment. Now, if this is going to be specific to this transaction, so I can say this is a bill that generated an asset, so I can enter in here was the depreciation posted. And then I can make it for this record. I can attach a depreciation schedule. Let me find. I can click on the browse option and drag and drop my file. if this is a link, and for example, we keep the file in a Dropbox or anything that would include a file, you would go ahead and copy and paste it in here. Okay, so now I can share let me go back to post. Oh, he deleted my post. Was appreciation posted. I can click on share. Now this is posted in here, and then I can click on follow to see if someone in the team answers my question, and I can see their comments once they have answered me. Okay. So this is a very neat tool. I really encourage everyone to use it. And again, it removes having to keep communications outside of the system and everyone else, as long as they're either following you or within the group, they can go ahead and view those postings. Okay. And one thing that I do also want to mention is as soon as someone posts and they either direct a comment at you, or if you set up to follow a transaction, you'll see the little notification available in that comment bubble. All right. Let's talk about our checklist. So with checklists, we know most organizations have processes that require progress tracking, and perhaps you guys are all doing it in Excel. Well, now Intacct also has a checklist functionality. And so we would access checklists from company all. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on our plus sign here. And so the way that I see this functionality used the most is for month end, right? We know that there are 5, 6 steps that we have to complete before we can say month is closed. And so I want to go ahead and create a April month end checklist. And so our required fields are the checklist name and the checklist owner. However, keep in mind that you can assign categories. So if you wanted to group your checklist in any way, you can use that checklist category. You also could set a status. So perhaps once we're all done with month end close, we come back in here and set it to complete. Within your checklist, you can create assignments, or I'm going to call it a task as well. And so we could say, well, first of all, we need to close AP and reconcile to GF, right? Let's say that we're going to start with that module. We can assign a description and said, we're due to start that on May 2nd, right after our check run, and it needs to be completed by the 7th, or whatever the requirement is in your company. And then you have the option to assign it to a user. The moment that we click save on this checklist, that user will receive a notification with their task, the description of the task, and start and due dates. Okay. And then we'll set the assignment status as not started. So let's go ahead and click save. Ooh. Oh, it helps if my contact is active. Let me. Yeah. All right, getting technical difficulties, but I can show you guys my previews checklist. Okay. So at the end, you'll see the checklist and the assignments here. Now, let's say that you wanted to create dependencies between those assignments. And so what you're able to do in Intacct is if you have an assignment, you could create dependencies. So I could say that my AP close, no, apologies, guys, I meant to use this one. So I could say that this event assignment cannot start or needs to be finished by the start or due date of another assignment. Okay, So with that, so we can set those limits. So if you are in those companies where you want to make sure one step is finished before the next step on that checklist starts, you would then use the edit assignment screen to set those dependencies. Okay, and so I will finish this and click save. All right. Okay. So we've covered our user preference, we covered enhanced lists, we covered checklists. Now let's talk about some data entry shortcuts and some other tricks that I found in Intacct. And so for that, I'm just going to move over to a transaction screen. I'm going to stay within AP bills and just click on add here. Okay, so if we are currently in a transaction screen, and I'm just going to make some data entry in here. Let's do USD and USD. And I'll enter my amount. So at this point, I have finished entering my transaction and I'm ready to save. Well, one of the things that we try to do is teach you all these tricks so that you can move from having to use a mouse constantly. So during data entry, you're able to use a tab key or the enter key to move around the screen. And so now you're ready to save, but you don't want to touch the mouse. So one of the tricks is if you use the Alt key and the letter S, it actually saves the transaction if you don't have any errors like I do. Going on. You can also, and I know it's going to error out again, what you're also able to do is if you click on the Alt and W, it'll save the transaction and open up a new add new screen. Okay, so you can see it clear all of my vendor information and it actually posted through successfully. Okay, to exit out of a screen, you would press Alt and Q, and now you're back at your list view. Okay, let's go back into the transaction screen because what I need to show you. So if I'm working in a blank field and I want to open the drop down, of course I can use the down arrow, but keep in mind that you can also, I'll go ahead and close that and use the Alt key to expand that section as well. Okay, and of course we all know this one, the down arrow and up arrows will move us up and down. And Alt D and the Enter key will actually launch a new browser for us within Intacct. Okay. Some more tips and tricks. I'm going to jump now to a report because I want to show you tricks related to the dates fields here. So when it comes to entering dates, again, you could click on the calendar, scroll left, or right or left, click on the drop downs to select your month and your years. However, you could use your keyboard as well. So right now, if I change this to April 30th and I press the letter T as in Tom, it will set the date to May 1st. It'll set it to the current date. If I use the plus sign, it'll add or increment the date by 1 every time I click it. Okay, if I use the minus sign, as you may have guessed, it'll move it down to, it'll decrease the days by 1 day. Okay, the letter W will give us the first day of the week for the current date that we're on, and the letter K will give us the last day. All right, same thing with the month. We can do the letter M to get the first day of the month. And if we hit M again, we're going to get the first day of the prior month. To get the last day of the month, we would click the letter H. And if we hit H again, you will get the last day of the current month, all right? Of course, there are your options. So if you pick the Y, it'll give us the first day of the year. If you do the letter R on the keyboard, it's going to be the last day of the year. All right. And to finish, I know we're a little over. To finish, I do want to show you another tip, and that's on numeric fields. So let's say that you're trying to do some math related to your transaction. You can actually do arithmetic operations within the numeric field. So the best way to launch the calculator is, of course, go ahead and enter your amount. And then you can hit either the plus sign, minus sign, multiplication, or division sign on the keyboard. And that opens up the calculator. Now, at this point, you can go ahead and say, I'm going to add that $4,000 times 3 divided by 5. And so you can do your math in here, and you can hit the equal sign to get the final number. And so if that's the number that you're looking for, you can then hit the enter key to add it to your field. Okay. And again, that number can be entered. Use the plus sign or one of the arithmetic signs in your keyboard so that you can launch the calculator and get going from there. Okay. That was the last item that I had to show you. I know we are a little long. Stephen, did we get any questions?
No, as of now, we're good. Since we are running out of time, we'll go ahead and wrap up. So if you guys do have any questions, then please reach out to your assigned account manager or contact the Acumen CSP team. We will have a recording of this webinar ready for you in a few days. So please be on the lookout for that and share with your team. Again, we want to say thank you guys for joining us today. We hope to see you guys on our next CSP webinar or a future part 2 of Sage Intacct tips and tricks.
Thank you.